What's good, Tam fam? This is Victoria with Taylor Academy of Music, and today we're going to cover low notes for female singers. Today we're going to cover why you need to work on your low notes, some examples of the wrong way to sing low notes versus the right way, as well as some exercises that you can use to develop your lower range. So why is it important to be able to sing low notes as a female singer? Oftentimes, as female singers, we focus a lot on our high range and having our big money notes, but the low range is just as important. And as you dig into working on your low range, it's actually going to strengthen your high range as well, because your voice is one instrument from top to bottom. And as you focus in on strengthening one part of your voice, the whole voice will benefit. So for me personally, I have always struggled to sing low notes. In fact, I used to call the lowest part of my range an A flat 3, and I could not go any lower than that. That's this note. That used to be really difficult for me to sing. That used to be the very limits of my lower range, and I would say no to any song that went any lower than that. And even that note was difficult for me to get consistently because I would often push down. I would reach down for the note and lower my head and lower my larynx to get this kind of puffy sound, and I just wouldn't be able to really lock into that note. So singing is a huge part of my life now, between performing in my local community, singing at church, and teaching music lessons to both female and male singers. I have had a lot of need to sing lower than an A flat 3. So since using the Taylor Academy of Music vocal curriculum, I have learned how to master my low notes. So let's talk about one of the most important things for learning how to sing low notes: voice buzz. You may have heard the term vocal fry before. It's pretty much the same thing. Voice buzz is that sound you make when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed, like, I don't want to get out of bed yet. Voice buzz is the most efficient way to make sound, and we define it as using the least amount of air to get the most amount of tone. Voice buzz is extremely helpful for low notes. It really helps you dig in to find that correct placement. You want it to be forward, and you want your larynx to be balanced, and you want it to feel very speech-like as you approach your low notes. So let's take a popular example. We Don't Talk About Bruno. There's a spot where Dolores sings solo. She's really more like rapping, but she's got pitch in her voice. So here's an example of how to really dig into those low notes with proper technique. Grew to live in fear of Bruno stuttering or stumbling. I could always hear him sort of muttering and mumbling. I associate him with the sound of falling sand. If I were to approach singing this section of music how I would a few years ago, it might sound something like this. Grew to live in fear of Bruno stuttering or stumbling. I could always hear him sort of muttering and mumbling. I associate him with the sound of falling sand. As you can see, I was sort of reaching down for those low notes by lowering my chin. I had a really breathy and unfocused tone quality because I wasn't confident that I could hit those notes. So how do we take it from that to a more correct vocal technique? Here's two ways we can approach this passage. The first is doing it with nothing but voice buzz, so exclusively using that sound. Grew to live in fear of Bruno stuttering and stumbling. I could always hear him sort of muttering and mumbling. I associate him with the sound of falling sand. Doesn't sound the most beautiful, but you can hear it has that great connection. The next thing that you can do to really focus on those low notes is to try speaking down in that range. So let's try just speaking around those pitches. Grew to live in fear of Bruno stuttering or stumbling. I could always hear him sort of muttering and mumbling. I associate him with the sound of falling sand. This should feel super easy, like you're just speaking in your normal voice, and it's actually very close to how Dolores actually sings this. Put these two together, our voice buzz with our speech-like tone. Another really popular example of a low note sung by a female is Halo by Beyonce. Remember in that beginning verse, she goes super low. So let's hear how I would approach singing that note. Remember those walls we built, baby, they're tumbling down. They didn't even put up a fight. They didn't even make a sound. So here's an example of my low range using voice buzz. I'm gonna start on middle C, C4, and go all the way down to C2, which is otherwise known as bass C. This note is extremely difficult even for male singers to hit, let alone a female singer. But when you utilize the correct vocal technique, anybody can hit this note. Ma, 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 ma. So here's some specific exercises that you can do at home to work on your low range. One thing you will hear me doing all the time right before I have to sing some low notes is really just connecting into my voice buzz on ah. So you'll hear me going ah, anytime right before I have to sing low notes. That's my go-to because it helps me get in that right placement and use my voice buzz. So my favorite exercise to work on my low range is going to be saying ba, be, bee, bo, boo. We're starting low in our chest voice and going all the way down to voice buzz. Ba, be, bee, bo, boo. This exercise is great because it allows you to connect your chest voice down to your voice buzz, which allows you to blend them together. And this exercise comes from our daily vocal warm-ups. And that is what you should check out next, as it will help you with not only your low range, but your high notes as well. Find the link here.